It was a dark and stormy night, and Sarah was driving alone on a deserted country road near an old gas station. The rain was pouring heavily, and the wind was howling, making it difficult for her to see. Suddenly, her car hits potholes, loses control, swerves off the road, and crashes into a ditch. Dazed and confused, Sarah tried to get out of the car, but the doors were locked. She looked around, trying to find a way out, when she saw a figure in the distance. A man in a long black coat was slowly walking towards her. Sarah called for help, but the man did not respond. He kept getting closer and closer until I could see his face. His eyes were as black as coal, and his complexion was pale and cold. She felt his presence, and it sent shivers down her spine. Suddenly, the man vanished into thin air, and Sarah was left alone in the dark. I tried to start the car, but it wouldn't budge. She was trapped with no way out. As night falls, Sarah hears strange noises coming from outside. It was as if someone was watching her, waiting for the right moment to strike. I tried to ignore him, but the fear was too much for him to bear. Just as she thought she couldn't take it anymore, the black-robed man appeared again. This time, he was standing right outside the car, staring at her from the window. Sarah screamed, but no one could save her. The man started scratching the window, trying to break through it. Sarah could see his crooked smile and knew she was in grave danger. She closed her eyes, hoping it was just a nightmare, but when she opened them again, the man was gone. Hours later, Sarah is found by a passing car. She was in shock, and it took her days to recover from the shock. But to this day, she can still feel the coldness of the man in the black coat, and she knows he's still out there, waiting for his next victim. I never thought I'd be the victim of a terrifying night encounter until the night I met Shane and his gang. My life was forever changed after that fateful night. I used to hang out with a group of friends that loved driving around late at night. We were young and foolish, thinking it was cool to stay out until the early hours of the morning. Looking back, I realize it was a dangerous and irresponsible thing to do. One night, I was driving home from dropping off my friend Jake when I noticed I was running low on gas. I pulled into a deserted gas station, hoping to fill up quickly and be on my way. That's when I saw Shane and his gang loitering outside the store. Shane was a tall, menacing figure with a shaved head and tattoos covering his arms. His gang consisted of 3 other guys, all looking just as menacing. As I walked past them to enter the store, I could feel their eyes on me. Inside, I paid for my gas and bought a lottery ticket. I tried to ignore the unease I felt in my gut, but it only grew stronger when I heard the sound of a motorcycle revving outside. I quickly filled up my tank and got back in my car. I was about to drive away when I heard a loud banging on my car window. I turned to see Shane and his gang standing outside my car, blocking my path. "Hey, pretty girl, what's your hurry?" Shane sneered. I tried to ignore them and drive away, but they wouldn't budge. Suddenly, the back door of my car opened and one of the guys jumped in. I was frozen in fear as I watched him pull out a knife and hold it to my throat. "Drive!" he ordered. I didn't know what else to do, so I started driving. The guy in the back seat kept the knife to my throat, while the others followed us on their motorcycles. I drove for what felt like hours, until we arrived at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. They forced me out of the car and tied me up with rope. Shane stepped forward, grinning wickedly. "You're going to pay for crossing us," he growled. I was sure I was going to die, but then suddenly I heard the sound of police sirens in the distance. The gang members panicked and fled, leaving me tied up and alone. I was eventually rescued by the police, but the trauma of that night stayed with me for years. I never took a night shift job again, and always made sure to stay in well-lit areas after dark. Looking back on that night, I'm grateful to be alive, but I'll never forget the terror I felt at the hands of Shane and his gang.
The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the deserted gas station. I had taken the graveyard shift to make ends meet, and I was regretting it already. The silence was deafening, and the occasional rustling of the wind made me jump every time. That's when he walked in. He was tall and thin, with a gaunt face and piercing blue eyes. He was wearing a long black coat that flapped in the wind, and his hands were hidden deep in his pockets. I tried to ignore him and focus on my work, but something about him made my skin crawl. He didn't say anything at first, just wandered around the store, picking up random items and putting them back down. But then he turned to me and spoke in a low, gravelly voice. "You know what's out there, right?" I had no idea what he was talking about, and I was too scared to ask. He continued to ramble on, talking about shadow creatures and otherworldly beings that lurked in the darkness. I tried to ignore him, but he kept getting closer and closer. That's when I noticed that his eyes had turned completely black, like they were empty voids. I tried to make a run for the door, but he was too fast. He grabbed me by the arm and pulled me back, his grip like a vice. "You can't leave," he hissed. "You're one of us now." I struggled to break free, but his grip was too strong. That's when I noticed that his hands were covered in thick black tendrils that seemed to be pulsing with life. I screamed for help, but there was no one around to hear me. I was trapped, alone in the dark with this monster. And then, something even more terrifying happened. The walls of the gas station began to ripple and shift, like they were made of liquid. The air grew thick and heavy, and I could hear a low, guttural growl coming from somewhere deep within the building. The monster laughed, a sound that echoed through the darkness like a death knell. "You're never getting out of here," he said. "You belong to us now." And then he disappeared, leaving me alone in the shifting, pulsing darkness. I don't remember how long I was trapped in there. It could have been hours, or it could have been days. All I know is that when I finally emerged, I was a changed person. The world looked different somehow, like a veil had been lifted from my eyes. I could see things that I had never noticed before, things that lurked in the shadows and whispered in the night. And every time I closed my eyes, I could still hear that monster's laugh, echoing through the darkness like a promise of things to come.